My class, Kiani, Tao House. And my daddy's Southland, Pashishin. And Sinajini, my grandfather. And a Diné or Manali.
Ruth Roessel helped place the power of education in the hands of the Diné, dedicating over the past 50 years to educating the people of the Navajo. Ruth Roessel believes controlling the education of the Navajo is the source to not only maintain the Navajo culture and way of life, but also strengthening the Navajo people to better their lives.
When we talk about culture, that's some of them don't even know their culture. Some of them come from they've been relocated on St. Louis or Los Angeles or Chicago or wherever. So they hear the college on the reservation, and they want to come back. The most important thing is they want to come back. They want to learn about the culture. They want to learn about who they are. So it was real sad in my class. A lot of some of them. I don't speak Navajo, and I don't know anything about it. There are tears coming down. It's just really, really, really touchy and those things. So I tell them about it, a lot of things, This is what makes you a Navajo. You may not speak your language, but you can read about all these things, and that's what makes you a really strong person, I said.
Ruth helped create Navajo Community College, now Diné College, in 1968. The goal was to take the Navajo curriculum to the level of higher education.
She came in at a time, it's not like you had all these Navajo leaders. You still only had a handful of Navajo leaders. But I think at the same time, it was a period of time where people were trying to find different voices and were open to listen. She could talk about the young people. She could talk about, the next generation from a woman's perspective that I think, resonated with people.
I always have encouraging them to, to learn the beginning and the roots of where is, the culture really coming from.
If I was a student, I would say, here's somebody that's dressed traditionally, and maybe I should pay attention. I think it opens an eye. She's very, very fluent in Navajo. In fact, I think she'd rather talk Navajo than English. It comes to her easier, you might say. But she's very knowledgeable in the tradition, and I think that's what makes her an icon. She not only dresses, she speaks, and she eats, and she sleeps. Everything's tradition.
So I always look at, I see this child, just like when I was teaching the college, just like I said, their tear coming down. And I say that I feel sorry for that, And then that really makes me think that these children need to know, need to learn. And so my dad said, if you learn your culture, if you learn what's going around you, and then that makes you strong, that makes you a Navajo. If you don't learn those things, and it's just like the tumbleweed that has no roots and rolling down the road, It's just going to be, like that, and so.
Working with her husband, Robert Roessel, Ruth helped begin the first school board controlled by Navajo in 1957 in Low Mountain. Born June 15, 1934, in Round Rock, Arizona, Ruth Roessel grew up in a traditional family from which she learned the Navajo culture and language.
I real close to my dad when I grew up. I always with my dad. I always in summer when I come back from school, then my dad said, "Well, let's go out and plant the corn," And so we up there. They don't have a tractor those days. They have team of horse. And then so I was up there. I just, maybe 12, 13, 15 years old. I was out there with my dad. And so he talks to me a lot, this is what you do, this is what you do. If you don't know these things, someday it's going to be gone, and who's going to teach you? Who's going to learn from it?
At a young age, Ruth's parents pushed her to focus on Western education as well as Navajo traditions and culture.
Mom and Dad were very traditional, and they taught her these things, and she was there to learn it instead of shying away from it and saying, I don't know, I don't have time for that, She was there to learn.
Even as a teenager, Ruth embraced her passion towards education.
I thought that, I always liked to teach. When I was in high school, I always have my teacher always says you have to go down to the kindergarten class and to help the teacher. And so I always do that, so I always wanted to be with the little kids and all this stuff like that.
I think it's her father and her children, and she views not children just like, myself and my brothers and sisters, but all Navajo.
In 1966, Ruth combined her and her husband's passion for education to create the Rough Rock Demonstration School.
Ruth has been very instrumental in making sure that our culture and language is taught here. Her and her husband did help start the school along with community members. Had it not been for them, the idea, the concept of teaching Navajo and us being a demonstration school wouldn't have started.
My original goal was I want the Navajo kids to remain, the Navajo and keep their language and keep their culture and keep the value that makes us a Navajo. So because I've been on the off-reservation when I went to school and all this that, so I learned that when, it wasn't right that I look at myself as I learned both sides, the culture and then speaking both language. So I thought to myself when the little kids at Rough Rock should be, learning the language and English and read and write and all that kind of stuff like that. And that at the same time, read their own Navajo. We write Navajos, read Navajos too. And so I want them to do it. That was my goal. And also Navajo people, that the value that we have, or how we live. And like with Navajo, we believe that had a lot of sheep and had a lot of horse, it makes you rich. That's what we were told when we were small. But those are, I think, it's really value to us and Navajo kids and Navajo people today, because that's one of the things that I wanted to, these young people, young kids, to continue to learn, continue to go out and take care of their last stuff, and so that makes them Navajo, and so a lot of things like that, and also a ceremony that we go to, and that's one thing that we don't just walk into the ceremony. We had to be, before we go, we have to be initiated before we do things like that. So those are sort of things that I look at is these kids need to know, need to learn all these things, so someday they won't be stuck, somewhere and say not knowing their culture, say not learn talking their own language. So that was my, even like things, how we dress, that was very important too. Women, long time, they have a real full skirt, and then they all wear a hairdo, and then they always wear a necklace, they always wear earrings. So that's what makes Navajo women strong and power. And the same way with the man, my daddy had a long hair, he had the bun in the back, and then so he was a medicine man. And then we had a lot of people like that in the past, and now we don't. We have a few, but we have a lot of young people, they came back with the long hair. But that's what makes us proud, being a Navajo. So we don't want to lose what makes us a Navajo. That was my main idea. That was my philosophy in education of the
I know one of the things that my mom used to always say is that education was just one of the mechanisms they used to try to reach to help improve the life of the reservation. And they just went through education.
It's accomplished right now. It's that we have, it worked, you know, and a lot of Navajo young people, a lot of Navajo people, they really learning. They really wanted to be a Navajo woman dressed a lot Navajos and woman long time ago. And then also some of the men, they wear a necklace, they wear a concho belt, and so that looks really nice. They wear a moccasin. So, and yet they're speaking two language, you know, speaking English, and at the same time they're speaking, you know, our Navajo language. I'll go talk to people. That's what I tell them. You know, what really makes a Navajo is we speak English and we speak Navajo. So we talk to the non-Navajos, and then we talk to the Navajo people or young people to keep their, you know, their language and keep the way we live in, to understanding what is the value to us.
I always like to say that Rough Rock is an idea, not just a place. That the idea is that Indian people can control their own destinies. That's what Rough Rock symbolizes, not only to the Navajo Nation, but to all of Indian country. I think my mom exemplifies that, in that she is able to go in both worlds, and she does it successfully.
If you really look back at the history of Rough Rock, the school board back then were all male, and the planning, the leadership, all of that is male dominant within the history of our culture. So I think she brought out something that was more female dominant, where, you know what, females can also make plans. They can lead, they can do something more than just being at home and being the homemaker and taking care of the children and, you know, doing the woman's work in the home. I think the woman in the home is very important, although that is important. What she did was she took it a step further, where she said, you know what, we can do that, and we can also help in educating our children as well.
Her whisper was stronger than most people's yell and scream, or a chorus of the council. That her whisper was heard, and because it came from a place, and people felt that place.
Well, I don't know. I'm just me. I'm just me, myself. That's all. I don't say that how great I am, but I'm just believing is my believing is who I am. That's all I know.
After over 50 years of working to strengthen the culture and language of the Navajo people, Ruth Roessel still spends every day working to improve the quality of Navajo education and life. Ruth focuses centrally on the education of the youth, because she knows that schools like Rough Rock are the key to strengthening the culture of the Navajo people, while also broadening their opportunities within the world today.
But again, as I always say, Rough Rock's an idea. Yeah. Rough Rock's an idea.